as far as the ancient is concerned, for me, one of the questions that has always popped up is that when can you speak of the first couple in ancient India, a couple which has a name, there's a woman and a man and they both have names and love is being discussed. So very early, I came across this inscription which is in Chhattisgarh. It's in the Ramgarh hill in a cave which is now called the Jogimara cave. And that mentions a woman called Shutanuka. Shutanuka by name, and it is repeated twice, Shutanuka by name. Devadina, the sculptor, or it could be the painter, loved her. That's it. And Shutanuka is mentioned in the inscription as a Devdasi. So for me, this is actually in some senses a very modern inscription. When you think of ancient India, you think of caste, you think of Varna, you think of Jati. But here is a couple where the woman is mentioned in terms of her profession and her name. That's her identity. So it also gives you an insight into identity. How do people define themselves as against how they were described in these subsets, in the textual sources. And here is this man who is talking about love, and it's a love which is a sexual love because the word used is based on kam. So, from that to look at, that was my starting point, to go across time and look at the, the way in which love and lovemaking is described in the sources is actually absolutely fascinating. So, the Kama Sutra, for example, is often used to talk about titillation. But actually there is so much attention paid by the author to satisfying a woman's sexual desire that, it makes you think that, well, there were men who actually thought of this, in ancient India. There's also a marital love that can figure in the sources. There is, of course, romantic love. And of course, there are other emotions you can recover. So I was interested in laughter too. And one of the things that struck me was that if you look at how the Buddha is imaged, this great man, perhaps among the greatest ancient Indians certainly that we have had. And you think about him, he looks so somber. You will never see him smiling. And on the other hand, if you look at some of the sculpture that is there in the Mathura Museum, you will, you'll find a woman sort of after having had a glass of wine, sort of laughing, and there's a man holding on to her and holding on to grapes and so on and so forth. And then you ask yourself a larger question, that were people who were very important meant to look somber and dignified, because that's what happens in Rome. So in Rome, if you look at the way in which the senators are depicted in all those hundreds of busts that you have, they all look very serious and grave. Nobody seems to be having a good time. And on the other hand, you look at the mosaics in Pompeii, and it's there that you find fun and laughter and so on and so forth. So, looking at themes like this, and talking of the Buddha, if you look at Southeast Asia, you have the laughing Buddha. So obviously every culture has its own way of depicting the, the same persona.
Yes.